So I will basically start my session. So, and a quick one, I think, my expertise is more around what the session we're going to talk about. As you know, we have rightly pointed out, like the importance of data science that we see in day-to-day life, right? This session is more to very specific that I wanted to touch base on the customer and the marketing analytics side of it, right? So basically, um, in real time, what we see in today's world, right? So some way or the other, it's important to reach the right customer at the right moment, right? And basically, the session is going to talk about how we are doing it in the space of a retail and a CPG, what kind of business problems that we come across, right? And leveraging the data science or the analytical side of the thing. So what kind of algorithms, what basically we're using to solve them up, right? So it's more about understanding the real-time business problem, and then basically seeing on the other side the analytical or the data science model that gets into solving that part of the journey, right? And for my experience, I think already it's been summed up. For the last 7 years before I joined Accenture, it was with Danambi, and Danambi was basically purely into the data science, specifically into retail and CPG, and also my role into the Accenture was like an AVP or and data science manager out here. So primarily looking into all the data science innovations, the work that it goes mainly with the CPG and the retail industry, right? So with this introduction, I'm going to start, and I think if you have any other questions, anything, feel free to let me know, or basically at the close of the session, I can also take up some of the questions. So whatever works in between, we can do that, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to, I think, can you speak slowly? I think what I'm saying, okay, I'm going to, if it's fast, let me know. I'm going to try to slow it down. So I think I'll just start off a bit of more of questions, right? So when we think of the customers, right? So what you guys think that what is the role of data science in order to, if you think from a more of a customer centric strategy, like a lot of days we talk about having the right customer, customer acquisition. A lot of these you will be hearing, right? So that's basically in the industry. So what your understanding on the data science for the customer, right? If anyone can help me, get your views, and definitely I'm going to touch more on that. Any one of you, like if you think of, taking any industry example, like nowadays we shop like, say Amazon or BigBasket, the Blanket, right? So a lot of these are e-commerce platforms. Plus you see a lot of these retailers as well, right? Think of a day-to-day life and see that what is the role of data science it can be thinking of a customer. Data recommender system, okay, analyze data. Okay, so what are you going to do by analyzing the data? Analyzing customer data, yes, of course you're going to see the customer data. But analyzing the customer data, what all things you think that we can personalization? Really good point. Get insights, yes. So any example of how you want to fit in the insights in a real-time problem? Trend of the consumption, yes, of course. How this, your pre-COVID and all, we see a lot of price and promotion optimization. Good one. Yes, everything is a part of that. Top selling products, offering targeted products and services. Great. I think you all have in some part and pieces in these. This is what exactly we see as a part of a customer. How data science is going to influence customer journey, right? Customer preference and behavioral trends, potential customer target. Excellent, right? So I think all these are, it's basically going to be a part of the entire landscape, right? So I think in terms of what we see is everyone in today's competitive world, we need to think of like, which is your right customer, right? How I can basically think of the right channel to reach to them. What is the right frequency, right time, right content, right? So these are the key pillars of enriching that customer experience. So these are the core components that gets into it. But every time nowadays, if you see that for every industry, right? You see a lot of Facebook ads, Google ads, everything is coming. Like and the some way or the other, their intent is that they want to reach out to the right customer, right? And if Facebook or Insta and all what we are using in today's day, so it's more of like how they understand what would be the right channel to reach to that customer, right? And right frequency is like so eventually all these things backed up in the customer journey. Supposedly you have recently bought a product, right? So every product has got its own set of a purchase cycle, right? So if I'm using a shampoo of say 250 ml, right, versus someone using a 500 ml, right? So that, and depending on the family size and who are all using, right? So there will be a kind of a purchase frequency. Some might be for a month, some might go last for 2 weeks, right? So now if a customer has already got something and you are basically trying to again target that customer with that offer, that is also the not right thing, right? Again, that's why the point of right frequency and the right time. So if a customer who is having that need, we need to understand. So when this customer will be the ideal time for the customer that we can contact, right? So that's for the enter journey. When we talk of any customer analytics, it's basically comes across different stages, which I'm going to talk about. And in each of the stages, what kind of analytical propositions or business problem that we normally see. Right content is more to basically, if you see nowadays, we do a lot of this campaign management, CRM programs, right? So ultimately, you know that this is the right customer, you know this is the right product for them, it is the right time for them, right? But now there are a lot of, I think we have already, some of you have given it to the chat, right? Personalization, right? So personalization with respect to the product, personalization with respect to the content, that is also important in today's world, because if something comes as a very scattered thing to you and it's just that's not appealing to you, right? You will be not be interested even to look into that mail and so on, right? So likewise, that content analytics is also coming very useful, important, where basically the internal, the integrated component will be more on the NLP side to understand what kind of content, keywords, what kind of designs is basically what we have seen customers, it's attracting those customers to buy into, right? So those are some of the component, and at every stages across this funnel, we have that some way of any of the machine learning, data science, insight. It's not about only the data science or ML, but also truly, if you see a lot of these industries, they look for the right insights coming out of the data. So that's why your insights also play a very important role, right? So now if I talk about some of the why we need to have those customer analytics. So if you see increased response rate, customer loyalty, ultimate return on investment, right? So what are these things talks about is like, if I target rather than doing a mass targeting, right? So if you see a product, say, we are thinking of a very niche product, right, in a market, and that can be, it can be anything to do with your, say, upgrading your laptop, right? So that laptop with a high configuration, it might not be a need for all of the customers, right? So what you want to gauge from the different data sources that is going to exist, that who can be my most potential target customer, who has the, in terms of the preference, their needs based on whatever they have shown as an interest in the past, is more likely they can be your target set of the customers, right? So that means that if I could target the customers, those who are more, have that right need with the relevant offers and messages you're talking about, that is going to tell about, because nowadays, if you're clicking on the email, right? Because when we talk of these, so suppose I'm giving an example of emails, the kind of offers that you get, over the email or WhatsApp, or you get exposed to this Facebook, or even in Insta, right? You see all those pop-ups and things that that comes up, right? So their entire mechanism of, because everyone is spending their marketing budget, right? So either it will be cost per click or impression. So there are certain metrics on which they try to optimize. The ultimate goal will be like, we want that customers to get exposed and click the communication that we are trying to send. So that's why the relevant targeting is very important, and the right need, identifying the right need of the customer plays a fundamentally an important role, right? So if we could basically see from a perspective of, I'm just trying to touch base on the wide targeting side of it, segmentation side of it, right? And definitely there will be other like customer churn and other things that's going to come, which we're going to talk about as well. So now, if we could target the right customer, definitely what the one part of advantage is like, you could reduce your campaign cost, and you are basically maximizing the return on investment, right? The second part to it is like, if we could see the decreased attrition. So in a real time world, you will see it very hard for us to retain your customers. Might be, there are some stage call. I'm just trying to see if I have got it in a second slide. Yeah, there are some of the questions, but yeah, prior to that, I'm letting touch base. I don't have that particular slide on a customer funnel, but in customer, if you see the stages in the customer journey, so the first stage will be the awareness, then consideration, then interest, then you're going to get into the buying stage, right? Then finally, once you start buying into it, so there the journey starts of how you retain that customers, right? How you make those customers loyal. So, and then from retention, then basically, when we talk of someone is going to, after interest, they're buying, then their post-purchase experience, right? So across these customer stages, which because I don't have a specific slide on that, so I'm trying to articulate the different stages, and the analytical component is going to come into it, right? So when we are into the stages of the awareness and the consideration, it's important that the brand tries to, so if you see any brand in today's world, right, everyone will try in some way or the other to let you know the kind of offerings that they have for the market, right? So here, the first stage of that's important will be the customer acquisition. So in this journey, they want to maximize, to promote maximum, right? So that you are familiar, you know what the right offering, and through those value-added campaigns, or it can be a mass promotion, right? It's always not that they're going to do a campaign, but even you think from a fundamentally of any of the TV advertisement, the newspaper advertisement, right? Enter this promotional activity. It can be related to the advertisement that we are playing. It can be related to the specific level of the mass targeting or a personalized targeting that we are doing. So it's aims to basically make the customer aware of the basically the kind of propositions they have, right? So now from this awareness stage, so now you're going to, as you move to the consideration stage, it's important that you are basically, once you start clicking the ad, right? So the interest came because okay, there is some kind of a need. I've been exposed to a specific state of a value proposition, right? Value proposition means that it can be some kind of an offering that I've been targeted for, some kind of benefits that I'm going to see, right? So now fundamentally that this awareness, when any of these organizations are doing, so they have to think, it's not only that I do a mass level targeting, right? Some of the digital platforms, when we talk of like Google Analytics or Salesforce automations, right? So they already have some kind of a defined audiences. So it can be that my age group is something, my certain level of interest lies in between something, my preferences is something, even if there is certain locational preference, right? So those can be the state of the audience that I can normally initially use to target, right? And the second part, like awareness, if you see consideration, then suppose the customers start buying into the products, right? So in this buying stage, so what we are going to see is more of like the important will be how I can make the customer to the first purchase, right? So if I can make the customer to the first purchase, the next important part will be from the first purchase, how I can make that customer to have a repeat purchase. And every stage from a first purchase to repeat purchase, there will be a lot of analytical capabilities, insights, modeling will be involved around that. And as you try to make the customers into a repeat purchase, then it will build that customer towards a loyalty program. So you want that customer to get more associated with the brand. You want them to basically target more. You want to have more value coming out of them, right? So that is how that enter customer loyalty today's world. And in loyalty space, there'll be a lot of things that we're going to talk about as well. This loyalty ecosystem has changed a lot in today's world. And finally, if these customers are happy with you, they're going to put that customer recommendations, reviews, right? And that becomes very important because nowadays, as a customer puts their post-purchase experience, be it in a kind of an Amazon, be it kind of in Google reviews, so entire world of NLP is exposed to it, right? Where you try to understand what kind of experience a customer has shared for that particular product or services they've taken, right? And that becomes, even if you compare with Make My Trip or a Go Ibibo, Yatra, like a lot of these platforms, right? So you're being asked to share that, they give you that points, right? So basically, if you are uploading any video, you're uploading the photo, or you're putting your feedback, so that becomes a part of a deciding factor what the customers, based on the past experience they have seen, right? So for us, basically, for any new customer or someone who might have a need, but they are going to look for this information as a source of authenticity, right? And then you will see, these are my, based on NLP, what's going to come to you. Okay, if I like this property, if I want, okay, this is basically the hotel was good, or, and why, what are the key factors? Is it that food that was, certain foods, you see it's quite good, or the behavior of the staff that was good, or itself the location or the view it was good, right? So there will be a positive or a negative drivers and the rating, obviously the customer rating and what attribute you're putting into it, right? So that sums up the customer experience in a way where the NLP related any topic modeling in terms of then what are the key drivers, those plays a fundamentally a very important role to understand what is driving the customer in terms of even it's a bad experience, good experience, you know it, right? And that becomes to the funnel when I was saying this awareness, right? So this feedbacks and all what you're going to review, and based on that, you're going to have a judgment in my given budget. Probably if I basically, this is
Hello,
whether
Surojit
I
sir.
should be going for this hotel or not. Likewise, now for those customers, those who are into the awareness stage, so they take that as a feedback, they decide, okay, whether this is the right choice or not, right? So this is how that entire value chain of things will be operating, right? So now going to my next set of I'm going to talk about more of this slide is more of personalization, loyalty, right? So prior to the loyalty, if you see, I see a raised hand. If any questions around, I take that as no and move, right? So for the awareness now also, if you think, right? So a lot of times we talk of like clickstream data. I'm not sure. I hope some of you all have already heard that, right? Clickstream data and live streaming data, right? So what it does is like, if it is a cookie that captures your behavior, the main intent of that is like, if I know a customer have a need, suppose it in Make My Trip, right, you did a research search, right? So that part, that will be taken as a kind of an active need because you have searched for a particular flight or hotel and you have not booked it, right? So I became a kind of a hot prospect. What you're doing if you're searching again, or you are showing some activity based on a browsing interest, right? So what it will do at this level, it's going to take all the set of those information as a part of a cookie or browsing, which will be captured as a part of your clickstream data. And the intent is like, I need to basically target my hot prospects, right? So even if I do a mass targeting and out of that, I know certain attribute might lead to a higher conversion. So particularly, I know if for a customer, if they have a need, right? The real-time engine is going to basically score on certain attribute based on your browsing behavior. And then basically you're going to put in, this is the state of the right customers and where you're expecting a higher conversion, right? So this is more on the awareness stage and how it will be going into it. So likewise, across this customer funnel of awareness, consideration, buying, post-purchase experience, there will be an entire set of the analytical models and experience that's going to get involved. Now, specifically, I'm coming back into the customers, those who are buying, right? So when you are making a transaction, so from awareness, now we are moving into the buying segment, right? So when customer starts buying into it, so now in the slide, what you know that a customer made a first transaction. So we have more of an information about that customer. And now we want that customer to either, there will be certain business objectives that we are going to see, right? So now let's understand that how this journey will look like. So from an analytical standpoint, so who are my most valuable customers, right? So what it will lead you like, some way or the other, we have to have certain segmentation to understand that it's not that all the customers is going to give you all the top-notch sales, right? So as a rule of Pareto, you'll be seeing like 20% of your customers gives around 70, 80% of sales. So any industry, that number will vary, but primarily important to understand those valuable set of the customers and what kind of analytics and what we do. I'm going to come in the subsequent slide. The second, who is doing what, right? So this part of the question is more important because now here, I think some of the question that I earlier had for you, what you understand by the customer analytics, is also to do with your identifying a specific set of the behaviors, right? So what kind of products I'm buying? What kind of if I'm being targeted with some email campaigns, so how many times I have opened, how many times I've clicked into the email, right? So that talks about my engagement or a way on the basis of the weight, right? So on the emails and all, how I'm being socially engaged. If I'm being exposed to a kind of Facebook ads, right? Have I clicked it or not, right? So those are the behavioral sides. Then what it ties back, right? What kind of products I have gotten. So if I say if I go to typically now let me call about say Reliance, Smart, right? We call it right. Basically, it's a kind of an a departmental store, or if you call it you want to also ordering online, right? So both online and offline channels will be integrated, right? So what it tries to, so let me give that an example and study, because when you think from an day-to-day needs that we are buying, so it's going to help you to understand or identify your more behavioral side on how we are basically utilizing your past purchase behavior into taking a respective action, right? So based on certain products we are buying, what number of times we are going into the in-store, number of times we are buying into online, right? For the same customer, you might be going into a in-store and buy something. In-store is like physically you go and buy into the departmental store. And second is basically you're browsing and ordering through your web application, right? So now through app-based and all for a given customer, what is the penetration that you are seeing, right? And what kind of products typically they're preferring to buy in-store versus online. So these are the behaviors you try to study. At what frequency they're coming to your store, right? So what encourages someone to become a customer, right? So now if you see, basically there are external profiles that also been available for, supposedly when you see some of the reward mechanism pointers, right? So like, it can be, I think long way I remember that Big Brother used to have that, it was something payback card, right? So payback card and others, these are loyalty cards. So what it have is like for these loyalty cards, they will have the information of customers, say, your profile. It means that they will have information regarding your age, your birthday, your anniversary, right, from where you belong to, your occupation. So a lot of these data are being collected. So the point is like they try to integrate, because these are the data points. If I know there is certain, I want to target for a certain group of customers, which is more of a teen or early adults kind of in products, right? For energy drink, right? So that's not going to target for the entire generation of customers, right? So these attributes been collected and been studied as a part of a model. Then what does my entire customer life cycle look like? So it's basically customer life cycle is from a starting of the journey to the end of your consumption. What kind of products a customer was buying into it, right? Typically, when we talk about this personalization and all, your product buying behavior plays a very important role. So supposedly it comes out like, a family with a toddlers and you want to target with something which is more of a baby diapers, right? You definitely want a product to identify whether it was more of a diaper or baby needs they're buying into it. So that's why fundamentally the products you're buying plays a very important role while we craft any of the strategies. So now I think I will, in terms of the important ones, revenue growth, definitely based on the right targeting, the right customers and the prospects. So you have a higher conversion, but that will lead the revenue to grow, right? Customer retention is where we are going to talk about, right? As we acquire more customers, as your aim of the objective of any business proposition will be like, I acquire more customers so that at least you have enough customers in your for the business. At the same time, it's important to retain, because from a profitability angle, if you're losing one more loyal customers, it can be leading to like losing 5 normal customers, right? So the customer loyalty and retention plays a very important role over here. So if you see from that, in terms of the different journey or the voice of the customer, like product segmentation, customer segmentation, acquisition, cross-sell and upsell that you're going to see, right? Next product offering, customer retention and churn, customer lifetime value. So these are some of the fundamentally very important concepts that we see. Even for a customer that you're acquiring, now you wanted to basically upgrade them, right? You want them to buy more. So what kind of proposition that you're going to see for upselling and cross-selling to them? So again, as someone you said, recommended system. So what does recommended system will do is like, based on a product that you have last purchased, you want to predict what will be the next best purchase a customer can buy. So likewise, there will be a lot of these recommended system that's been available. So like collaborative filtering, you see, or now a lot of times now we are talking of these SVD, like singular vector decomposition, this revised form of matrix factorization, non-matrix factorization, right? So these are the techniques that have been available. It's just like, a lot of these Python modules are there. The second part is the customer retention and loyalty. So when it comes of the churn models, right, which of the customers is going to churn at what point of time. That's what you're trying to predict with your more of your advanced predictive models, right? The next part of your customer lifetime value is more around, you want to predict if the customer stays in your business. So what will be the net value that a customer can give you in next 1 year? So here it's basically, this is another in CLTV, predictive CLTV, a lot of different algorithms in terms of, NV Pareto and all we see, right? So I'm not going to the depth of the specific algorithms for today's session. The fundamental things will be to give you the cross idea of across different models and different analytical things that we see in today's world. So you get that flavor and analytics around. So now if you see that these are all from a perspective of, if I talk about the CPG or the retail, right? So some of these are very important metrics, like when we talk of specifically for a behavioral thing, that geography, if you see, right? So depending on the different products and at a time of like a kind of a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 versus the district, right? So there will be different level of product attributes. So those are the because even you see a when you're doing a targeting and you're using that where the customer is residing, and supposedly if you're have not done that, and you're just giving some product which are more kind of preferred in the northern side of India, right? Might not be penetrating well across the India. In that case, what happens is like that is also not right targeting, right? So this will be the certain set of the important attributes in terms of the geography, the kind of category you're buying into it, your the number of visits or frequency, the spending habits, right? How many times you have visited, right? What is your average monthly spend? So these are the important metrics that we see. Along with that, it's like the category affinity, right? So if based on the category you are buying, what kind of category you are buying, so that will fundamentally lead to understanding if I can target a customer for a repurchase of that product, or based on the associated products, right? If I'm buying, so you will see that shampoo and conditioner, right? So if someone is buying shampoo, the immediate next, you can target with a conditioner. So those are the associated product category affinity that you can also look for. And again, there will be a more of a private level is like where you see that some of the big baskets, right? They have their own kind of a brand what we sell. So that also, because for a big basket, it's important also to penetrate. They're going to have more competitive, right? What other basically rest of the competitor is offering to you, versus if I want to penetrate, like I will give you a more discount, and so basically I can switch the customer to my own brand. So likewise, this behavior plays an important role while we basically build in any of the predictive or a customer level segmentation. So now comes the important one, where we basically can talk about say customer acquisition strategy, right? So in customer acquisition strategy, there will be a market segmentation, customer profiling. So here you don't have much of a data point for a given customer, right? So what you know is like the customer has not made any purchase to you. So there I need more of a customer profiling data. So if I basically for any of these say Google or Facebook and all, so there will be a lot of user profile data that is available, right? So that being used as a part of the targeting. And when we know, typically the best way to do it will be supposedly for a given product, right? So if you know who have purchased, right, you do a profiling of customer. So what it means that if I know, if I give you an example of say any brand which to do with a say energy drink, right? So energy drink, as you see, the customers who have got is more to the age between 16 to 28, right? Then it's more of like some cities have shown like probably those who are into more into the sports have some interest towards certain activity, they are loving it more, right? So those becomes my ideal. So based on the tokenization or categorization, they will try to see, okay, this customer have certain interest pertaining to this, their age is around this, right? So let me do a targeting, because during that acquisition I don't have enough information of that customer, right? So based on whatever attribute that will be available, so that will be used as a part of a targeting. And then it's like if you see behavioral analysis, right, tracing the customer feedback. So it's tracking the tracking the customer feedback plays also an important role. I was saying, like what kind of an experience that customer has shared, and that becomes as an input for the others to buy into. If that response is positive, if you see, so I think this plays fundamentally from the NLP plays an important role here, where we try to build more of a customer sentimental analysis, what kind of keywords they are looking into it, what is driving towards that positive experience, right? So that becomes the input for the rest of the customer whom we target. So if not that, if I target you, if I offer you something, you're going to buy into it, right? So supposedly, if certain Facebook ads you've been exposed to it, and you go to Make My Trip, as you go to Make My Trip, you're going to look into the user experiences what they have given, right? So that's why. So if you know that whatever the recommendation that we are doing, that is also driving positive, right? So that plays fundamentally an important role in basically having your customer to more likely to convert. So that's why if you see a conversion analysis, acquisition offer testing, so these are some of the very important analytical proposition that ties back to the acquisition strategy. So now comes the next base part, which is basically we call it like, as we know, the customers are already buying into it, right? So customer lifetime value models. So this takes into account of your historical behavior on your number of transactions you have made, what was the interpurchase frequency, what was the spend that you have done, right? Based on that, it's not a normal distribution. So if you see that this for this kind of a predictive historical model, it will be a binomial distribution. So where you try to predict more of like how many number of times a customer is going to come in the next 1 year, what will be the total value that customer might generate, right? Likewise, this predictive CLTV model that helps you to identify the value that a customer is going to do, right? Based on that, your strategies will be more centric around that. If I know a customer is going to drive more of a value in future, so I want to have best of the products recommended, best of the experience. In today's world, it's not only targeting, it's we called loyalty as an experience. So what you mean by loyalty as an experience is like if you see that, if you are availing or supposedly, you are buying a credit card, they will say that for Make My Trip, you get a 3,000 odd vouchers free. You get PVR tickets, right? So it's more of loyalty collision for different set of, because as from an organizational, different organization with a different offering, but customer want is like how I can get is a package. So everyone is going towards that. So in more of the, if you see gold, silver, tiering, and there are a lot of loyalty tiers that we work in today's world. Like, so platinum will get so and so reward. They will get this amount of benefits and this amount of collision programs, we call it. It's not only that, it's just a one, because for the specifically down there, Make My Trip says that only this offer will be applicable for Make My Trip. That's also not going to stick in because of the fact that everyone is collaboration, right? So everyone is collaborating, like be it Flipkart, they will give you that, okay, you could redeem these points into the Make My Trip, right? So now every point that you earn and burn, it can be across some of the partnering systems. So because now that entire ecosystem has evolved into a way where basically you will not put that as a restriction, right? So that's why fundamentally for any of these customer, those who are, you're going into more of a loyalty, right? The next part I'm going to come into the RFM. So RFM is like recency frequency monitoring. Like I think some of the you all who have already have walked into it, I have a specific slide on the RFM which I'm going to come. But on RFM, it's basically recency frequency monitoring. How many times a customer have visited? How what was the last purchase? Times you last purchase. What is the monetary value that customer has got into the business, right? Likewise, you see these are my most loyal customers. This will be kind of a mid-tier or opportunity customer, and basically that can be last chunk who are not basically one-timers and they're not basically returning back, right? So then the top chunk of customers, that might be your 15 or 20% that gives you highest chunk of the sales, right? So importantly, retain them, give them the best of the experience, and these loyalty programs or collision programs that we are talking about, right? That plays a very fundamental role in basically where you tie up the different organizations, give them the most of the value-added services that they could look for, right? Potentially, they will be the one who are going to be the advocate for your brand, and they're going to give you a positive feedback, right? So now we see it's more of like, fundamentally like those who are loyal customers, they will become your brand advocates, right? So what you mean by brand advocates, that they are the one who are going to give you the positive kind of an feedback. And also there is something called nowadays you will see user reference code, right? So if you yourself is going to do that propagation, and if you basically give that, there will be certain code right against you, and if your relatives or friends, when they come into buying into that platform and they use your reference code, they're going to get some bonus point. Along with that, you also going to be get benefited on that, right? So they are also using these as a word of mouth communication where you being the advocate of the service, you have taken the service, you are basically now bringing more customers that you're going to bring in. Definitely you will be rewarded for, and those who are basically coming from your reference, they will also see the benefits as well, right? So that is how that entire ecosystem has happened. So that's why every of the, be it in any CPG, retail, or any sector we talk about, everyone focuses to retain these most valuable customers so they can be the brand advocate, they can give you the business. And if they give you the business, the most advantage to it will be that you don't need to spend that amount for the social media. You don't need to go and do a campaign for them because they are bringing the business, right? Instead, what you're doing, you're giving that kind of an off or monetary benefits to that customer who is basically using those as a reference, right? So those become that advocate. Then the cross-sell and upsell. So what we mean by the cross-sell and upsell is like as here the recommender system that we talk about, right? So if I buy in certain category, it means that my supposedly hell now we call of there's a lot of buzzwords around that, organic, right? So everyone wants to be more of a fit and fine, organic, fitness freak, right? So these are more of a buzzwords. So particularly on the those who are into the health and hygiene, if someone is buying green tea, definitely there will be other set of the green tea might not be a very good thing. Everyone nowadays loves into the green tea, but considering someone who's more organic kind of lover, right? If someone is buying into one or two products, particularly for any of these retailers or any of the e-commerce platforms, they are going to target that. Okay, if someone is buying one or two products into the organic, that means you have that edge basically to cross sell with other products. Likewise, you see these market basket, collaborative filtering, as we are saying, the next big, right? Upsell is where you basically want to move them to a higher niche, because if you're buying something like a one of the product, a certain variant, which might be a bit of supposedly you have gold, classic and all, right? So supposedly you are buying into more of a classic grade, and a gold or platinum grade is where they want to promote you, right? So supposedly you are using these say geo, right? Geo network. In a geo fiber, you will see that there are a lot of these packages, right? So if you 500 mbps and 1 mbps, right? So not mbps, like 100 mbps, and as you increase that speed, a network, so unlimited, and there are a lot of these categories that you see, right? What it aims is like you are upselling. Someone was buying into the lower grade kind of a product or services. Now you want, because that need is there in the customer, right? So what you are telling that customer is like, why not you buy, you move to the next level, and these are the benefits you're going to get. And if you move to this next level, I'm going to give you 10% off, right? So again, this pricing and the promotion that we talk about plays an important role, because your instinct is to basically make that as a trial, right? And how you're going to do it, give them a discount, right? So likewise, this cross-sell and upsell plays an important role too, because from the same customer, you will be able to get a more value, right? So if you get a more value, there's a more margin for the any of the basically kind of players in the market, right? So now going to the campaign a bit more. So because campaign, customer, all these things are quietly interrelated. So how we target customers in terms of, there will be different set of campaigns, like awareness campaign, reactivation campaigns, right? So awareness campaigns where basically where you basically promoting the product, right? Reactivation, where the customer has basically have lapsed and you want to win that customer back. Okay, good to have you back, might be that campaign name. What you're trying is like, you are basically trying to again have those customers who was previously buying, and again initiate that, okay, good to have you back, right? And you give them a kind of a high discount. So those are the part of the campaign that we normally do. And the measurement framework looks like, it's like, if you target everyone, it will be difficult because you cannot measure the impact of that campaign. So likewise, there is something called, like we call it, a test and control mechanisms, which do help in terms of holding some customers, those who are more of a lookalike customer, right? And you don't expose them with the kind of a product or services. You don't target them. Then you see that how many of them have bought it versus whom we have targeted, and then you try to do that entire campaign measurement, right? How many have more click, whether they have been more conversions, and also those are the kind of kind of metrics that we basically look for. Again, customer churn and this measure, right? So this plays a very important role for a customer's churn. So you might have heard a lot on that, right? So a customer prediction, right? The customer who are going to mostly get lapsed in certain point of time, because this customer were valuable to you at some point of time, right? And now what we are predicting, which customers are the high risk customers, and basically they are showing that disengagement behavior and more likely to churn if we don't retain them, right? If we don't target them. So the point of churn analysis will be targeting those customers. Second, there will be a driver analysis. What does driver analysis will do? They will give you what are the reasons for the customer to churn. So this will be typically two different sets. One, which identifies the customer who are going to lapse in the business. The second, it's more of a driver which leads to tells you that if a customers are moving out of the business, potentially what can be the reasons that we can lift it down. Then the loyalty the analysis, right? Entirely what we try to build in is like, for every customers who have available services, like in terms of the RFM is one of the metric, way or design to build a loyalty analysis, like where you try to see what kind of products, in what kind of recency, what is the frequency, and how they were buying into it. And again, this loyalty analytics will do is like how much you are earning, how much you are burning your points, right? So a lot of these are, we call it an earn and burn mechanism, right? So if you see that if I get the benefit into getting into a loyalty program, that leads to me that for every purchase they may give you, that you get a cashback of certain things, right? So cashback is something that you can redeem, and even before the cashback, they might give you a limitation. Often you will see with a lot of these e-commerce players that maximum cashback you could basically redeem in one transaction, limited to 200 rupees. You might be having 1,000 in your bucket, right? But what it is ensuring is that you don't redeem that entire points all of us together and you go out of the business. So there will be always an interest for you that you could redeem some part of it. Again, you're acquiring some part of it. So in the next purchase, you can redeem some portion of it, but it's not that you can exhaust all your points what you've acquired and you could basically redeem it at one go, right? So these earn and burn mechanisms play a very important role on the loyalty. And of course, that customer, those who buys more, you will see that there will be a special editions like birthday celebrations, anniversary celebrations, special discounts. Like a lot of time you will see it happening with Titan and all, right? So they do give that birthday, anniversary, and special event, kind of in targeting to you. Then it comes like win back is quite often churn, right? The customers who have totally, moved out of the business, and you want to basically, bring them back. So here also, it's not only the churn analytics that we're talking about. Here also, you could integrate the customer review, right? So dissatisfaction measure will also come from if the customer has shared their negative reviews. You could also get what was the driver, what was the reason why they have basically negatively, reviewed your service, right? So entirely this game will come from the NLP side of the things. I'll do one kind of a time check, and are you guys? Is it this session is helping you all? Honestly, let me know with your feedbacks, right? So if something that you see that we need to discuss more or something, we will. I can. So if you see it, right? So this is typically a loyalty example. So target segmentation, which we talk about, right? So loyalty classification and visit, like if there are two important things that we could see around. So what it talks about is like the customer who are new. So those who are new will be, we have to treat it separately, right? So this group of customer you want to grow into the business. Someone who's like infrequent customer, occasional customer, right? So what we're trying to do, inactive or occasional customer, infrequent customer. So it will all come from your visit per customer and the spend per visit, right? So likewise here, what we try to see, we try to bucket them into some kind of a form. So it all comes from another, we talk a lot of data science, machine learning models, right? But a very simplistic thing is to do with your percentile, basic of the statistics as well. So even you plot the percentile distribution of the spend, like what is the number of times a customer have visited, right, in a year? What was an average spend per trip or per transaction, right? If you plot those percentile, itself you're going to see whether do we have a variation in that. Until and unless you see that variance or coefficient of variance, right? We cannot say that, if the data is falling flat, right? So everyone is making a one transaction, right? Then what it means is like you cannot segregate your customer. To do a segregation into one high, medium, and low, and also basically we also can look into the percentile distribution, quantile distribution, and see if we have a significant, a kind of a variation in the data by which we could classify into high, medium, and low, right? Now, if you see that customers, those who are spending very high, their number of transactions are very high, right? So that's what's coming from a distribution. If just for an example, this might be if you see that, high spending loyals, right? There it might, if you see just an example, like 4% giving you 24% of the sales, right? So these guys are potentials, though they are not, visiting frequently. Spend is average. So how you grow this potential into the loyal or low spending loyal into more of a loyal, right? So, and this is more of like the guys who are not been at all, having a, one time of a visitor, right? So these high spending loyals do play a very important role, and you want the other segment also to grow towards that high spending loyal, right? So as a result, what happens is like we call it like there is something called a lookalike model. So some customers might be in a potential stage, right, in some point of time, then they have become loyal. So when you do a lookalike, so what you try to see, what kind of features these customers have shown, what kind of products they were buying, what kind of behavioral things they had, which basically result in them to grow more and become more loyal, right? Likewise, this is a more of a lookalike, can be a predictive model by which we basically based on some point of window, you'll see this customer was potential. Now in 13 weeks or in next 26 weeks or in 1 year, this customer became loyal. So that becomes your event 1 and 0. Now you take the journey of those customers, those who are in potential and kind of an opportunity group, what they were buying, what kind of behavior they were showing, and how it translated in next another 13 weeks, and that might be a good to say, like next 1 quarter, they become kind of a loyal, right? So then the idea would be like from your existing opportunity group, you can target customers who have the potential to become loyal, right? And you give them a very specialized and a personalized targeting that will lead them to get more engaged, enrich those customer experience, so at least they become more of a loyal. So that's why this loyalty mechanism plays a very important and fundamental role. So likewise, you see, it's more of like it's not only that the segmentation is also an important role, right? We talked of loyalty. Now as we talked of those behavioral attributes, right? This is one example, like young professional, HDs, married professional, empty nesters, right? So if you see every let me close it up, right? So financially dependent, behavior determined guardians, like good long-term potential, lower ticket sizes, right? So based on what kind of products you are buying, what kind of other customer attribute data that we have for you, all right? So it might be related to your occupation, it might be related to your age, it might be with respect to the city you are residing, right? So all this becomes a very important role to create a behavioral segmentation. So behavioral segmentation means that if I take a very good example would have been with Zomato and Swiggy, right? So now if you see from a Zomato and Swiggy, the kind of food you're ordering, some who might be residing like, just early into your corporate life, into Bangalore or in Noida and all, right, Delhi side, Gurgaon, right? So having a weekend parties, behavior will come very good in a way that you're in every time in the night, there might be, they all might be staying in a PG and all, ordering bulk of the food, right? So that part will, and even if someone is basically having a party with booze and all, so there will be definitely set of products that you expect them to be buying. So they might be typically buying a Saturday some good chunk of basically the food that the junk food, right? And along with that, a good, definitely a mix of things we'll understand. And during the weekdays, they might be ordering something very, very quick for the quick meal kind of a thing, right? So likewise, that group can be more of can be targeted with something as a if you spend more of 2,000 bucks in the weekend, you get some straight away some offer on something, right? So likewise, these behavioral attribute, even someone who is ordering for a family, normally you will see that behavior coming over weekdays, weekend might have a different behavior, right? So likewise, those instinct and kind of food. So if someone is buying more of a biryani lover versus someone who's basically trying to have more of a dosa and idli and sambar versus someone who's liking more of a North Indian cuisines, right? So butter chicken, then your tandoori chicken and so on, right? And from where they're ordering what, right? So from which city, what restaurant, what food, and everything will help you to determine this customer are having this kind of an inherent behavior. So there will be a lot of similar customers, right? In this particular example, what we try to do based on your, say, last 1 year of transaction of a data or last kind of foods that you have taken. So, and what time of the day, what was the order quantity, right? How many different variants of the food, what type of food you had, right? And other information that are like whether you're buying more of your credit card or UPI payment or on the and even there will be kind of something like a late night thing, right? So these are the attributes, and this will fundamentally help you to create segmentation. So now when we talk of segmentation, it's a clustering techniques, right? So in clustering techniques, it can be k-means clustering, it can be DB scan, it can be density weave, like expectation maximization, right? So different clustering techniques, the k-means widely will be used, but some data where you might not have the highest degree of the variance, there can be a density based clustering that we are doing, right? So the techniques, I'm not going into depth of the things because that depends on the kind of data that we see, the volume of the data that we see. So even if the data volume is high, your hierarchy clustering is not going to work into it, right? So different clustering techniques can be tested based on the data that we do, but the fundamental importance will be use this information, create a segment so that even you're doing a targeting based on the segments, what kind of profile they are matching, what kind of likings they have, you could directly give them that kind of an offer. So that is fundamentally that what we could use this behavioral data for. And then again, everyone, some of you might be familiar. I'm not very sure, like some of you might have already done the predictive modeling. So I'm not going into depth of like, in terms of how we do it, right? But what I'm trying to give you a point of view, like who are my customers going to attack, right? When will my customer attack, right? So you know that which customer have a higher risk, when this customer might go off, right? So what product might help him to basically get back, right? So you are going to try to target here. The predictive model engine will help you. So whenever we talk of predictive models, it can be used for different basically business problem, like business objectives, right? When it comes to the churn model, your objective will be which customers are going to move out, what is the right, when one will be the point when they are expected to go out of the business. Second, if you are trying to build more of a kind of an, what they can buy. So you are doing some personalization. So what you are trying to do, who will buy? So supposedly you have certain set of the products, right? So what you are doing either through recommendation engine, right? Or through a predictive model or a propensity model, what you are saying, these customers are more likely to buy the product X or product Y. I should be targeting them. So when we talk of like what kind of product they're going to buy, the attributes will also be likely what kind of other products they have taken, whether they have taken that similar product or not at different point interval, last 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 13 weeks, right? You go at a different time interval and see with respect to the overall population. So if I see that average spend of a customer is 20 rupees, sorry, say let's 100 rupees, right? Now for that given product, other customer is spending more or less with respect to the population. So we create some index value. So what it talks about is the inclination of that customer towards that product. It gives that engagement score. So against that population. So every customer will not have that similar score, right? So if we could have certain index which talks about this customers have more inclination, right? There will be some associated products, right? So product A, B, D, and E might have a close association. So A, D, and something you have bought, not E. So there might be a higher conversion. Then what is so there will be certain attribute level to that number of times you've been exposed to the campaigns and also campaign related data, your user profile data. So that all fundamentally goes as a part of a propensity model for that given product, for that given brand. It can be anything, right? So then that's why I'm saying one can be churn model, one can be propensity model, one can be like, who are the customers who are more likely to convert from an offline to an online channel, right? So likewise, they're at a given different predictive based on a business problem. These stages can be done, right? And every of the modeling, like I'm not definitely there will be more of a decision, I think, in terms of the broader techniques, right? Here I've just talked about a couple of them, but it's not related to the predictive. But in terms of, it can be, when we talk of predictive, it can be with say decision tree, right? Your logistic regression, XGBoost, random forest, right? So different set of these models that you could do, train and test. You do a hyperparameter tuning, you determine which model has got the highest accuracy and best fitted, right? And then you try to understand that, in terms of when we are doing the lift and gain chart, right? So lift and gain chart typically see that for every decile, what is the conversion that you were saying, right? What is the percentage of event versus non-event compared to the overall percent event of the model, right? If you see that normally I see 10% of the customer is buying into the product, but now if for the top decile which I have predicted, it is giving me say 40%, right? So 40 by 10 is like 4x this top decile will be important. So you don't need to target for all of the customers, you target this top decile customers, right? So for any of the models that we build into it, so once we look into the precision, recall, F1 score and all, right, accuracy, we look into all the metrics, you build multiple ML models, decide what is the right model for you, do the validations, right? So there will be even if you want to do a careful cross validations, out of time validations, right? You do all these validations to test this model is going to be better, do a lift and gain chart and determine, okay, this is what that model fits look like, right? So once you have that model, then fundamentally what we do is like scoring of that model. So going forward is just that what we are trying to see that if you have to score, you don't have to build again, right? Once you have built that model, is into the production or development stage. So what it means that going forward for every month, that model already we have created, right? It's going to just score, it's going to target. Likewise, it always becomes kind of a circle. Now it's you're deployed, right? And some quarterly point, you do the model maintenance, see that whether we see some issues in the model, we do those diagnosis and say that, okay, these models might need a rebuild, right? And some of the examples are other like some examples I've talked of clustering, right? Particularly on the behavioral side. So there we need more of a clustering techniques. So neural networks or some of these things will be more important as we progress, but it's one way or the other, the same set of the problem that we see, optimization led things, even how what is the right optimal time, right optimal channel, all those things can be done using some the component of like Bayesian network as well. So I think there are a lot of applications which we are not going, but just trying to give you an understanding of the scenarios. Even your CLTV, predictive CLTV plays a very important role. And these are all like some of you might have been seeing these market basket and all, right? So basically, what typically the product that been sold in a same basket, right? So we have something like lift confidence and so on. I think with the interest of time, I'm not going to technicality, but it's just like the products what you see are being sold together in a one basket, right? So whenever you see that a lot of these product bundling happening, it takes into note of this market basket stuff, right? And so yeah, that's mostly I'll pass on the slides. Yeah, that is, and this is more of like recommendation in somewhat of you're saying, right? So where we try to analyze what the visitors coming from, and then basically we try to do a more of a relevant target, right, with respect to the collaborative filtering or recommendation engine. So I'm not intending to go to the depth because the session is more to give you the flavor of the different analytical things that basically being used across the industry. And this is more to do with real time, as we were saying, like Facebook, that call center, competitive blogs and all, right? And you want to do some targeting and a real time alerts that do come. It's mostly to with your looking and browsing your clickstream data. So this is some of the examples on that. Yeah, I think probably we are good for the day in terms of the overall process is concerned. Any questions? Anything? Any feedback? These are some of the slides I do have, but I think I've covered it most of the things. So like this is more of segment and trying to touch base analytical methods. So basically, if you see, right, so different business objective analytical methods and so on, right? I'm just trying to see what those impact, and because every model will have certain different impact, and this is fundamentally machine learning things. So what all things that comes into the feature, right? So this is basically the step, right? So all the objectives, customer groups, features building, techniques around, right? And then we do a model testing, validation, and so on, right? Yeah, that's primarily the thing just I wanted to cover today's session. I hope it all helped you all to gain something, and to let me know if I could help you in some way or the other. Yeah, thanks a lot.